sister said she'd always have my back. Then my husband's phone lit up with her text. She actually believed you had to work late again. I stared at those words glowing in the dark bedroom, my husband's phone face up on his nightstand while he showered. The timestamp showed 11:42 p.m., just minutes ago, when he'd kissed my forehead and apologized again for missing dinner. Again. For 3 months, I'd been the understanding wife, the supportive partner who packed extra lunches when he had overnight projects, who smiled when he canceled our anniversary dinner, who believed every word because why wouldn't I? My sister had been there through all of it, bringing wine and sympathy, telling me how lucky I was to have someone so dedicated to us. I screenshot the message. My hands weren't even shaking. That's how I knew something inside me had already broken. I forwarded it to myself, then deleted the evidence from his phone. The shower was still running. I had time. I opened our shared banking app, something I rarely checked since he handled the finances. We were saving for a house, he'd said. The account showed $847. 3 months ago, it had $43,000. I scrolled through transactions with growing nausea. Jewelry stores, hotels, restaurants I'd never been to. All on nights he'd claimed to be working late. The next morning, I drove to my sister's house unannounced. She opened the door in one of my husband's old college shirts, the one I'd been searching for. Her face went white. I can explain, she started, but I held up my hand. How long? I asked. She couldn't meet my eyes. Since your engagement party. 2 years. They'd been doing this for 2 years. While I'd been planning our wedding, choosing flowers and cake flavors, they'd been laughing at me. While I'd been trying to get pregnant, wondering why it wasn't happening, he'd been with her. I left without another word. Went straight to my mother's house and told her everything. Mom had always loved my sister more, made no secret of it. She was the pretty one, the charming one. I expected her to make excuses. Instead, she picked up her phone. Your father needs to know, she said quietly. Within hours, my entire family knew. My brother showed up with his lawyer friend. My aunt arrived with a notary. My uncle, who worked in private investigation, had already started pulling records. They moved like a military operation, and I realized something crucial. They'd been waiting for my sister to go too far. She's done this before, my mom finally admitted. To your cousin's fiancé, to your high school boyfriend. We kept hoping she'd change. You knew? My voice came out hollow. That night, I filed for divorce. My husband called 84 times that day. My sister sent 200 texts. I blocked them both. What I couldn't block were the emails to my work. Screenshots manipulated to make it look like my family had known all along. Then my boss called me in. Someone sent an anonymous complaint claiming I'd been stealing from petty cash. It was false, but it required an investigation. My sister worked in HR at a sister company. She had connections. During the investigation, I found something else. My husband had taken out a credit card in my name. The bills had been going to my sister's address. $38,000 in charges I'd never made. My credit was destroyed. My lawyer said we had a case for identity theft. My uncle's investigation uncovered more. My sister had been researching how to forge my signature, practice sheets in her trash, attempts to copy my handwriting. They'd been planning something bigger. The night before my divorce hearing, I got a call from an unknown number. It was my sister's best friend. You need to know something, she whispered. Your sister's pregnant. She's telling everyone it's his baby. They're planning to announce it at the hearing tomorrow to show you've already been replaced. I hung up and sat in the dark of my temporary apartment. The one-bedroom rental that smelled like mildew and had a broken air conditioner. My brother had helped me move in 3 days after I filed. Everything I owned fit in 8 boxes. 2 years of marriage, reduced to cardboard and packing tape. The hearing was at 9 a.m. I wore the navy dress my aunt bought me, the only professional outfit I had left. My husband had locked me out of our house, claiming squatter's rights since the lease was in his name. My clothes, my grandmother's jewelry, my college diploma, all trapped behind a door I couldn't open. I arrived early. My lawyer, Bennett, met me in the hallway with coffee and a grim expression. They're bringing character witnesses, he said. Your sister, your husband's mother, his boss. What about my witnesses? I asked. Your mom's here. Your brother. Your uncle's bringing documentation of the fraud. He paused. But they're going to paint you as unstable, jealous. They've already submitted a psychiatric evaluation request. My hands shook so badly I spilled coffee on my dress. Bennett handed me napkins, but the stain spread across my lap like blood. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. My husband sat with his lawyer, a woman in a power suit who looked like she ate souls for breakfast. My sister wasn't in the room yet, but I could feel her presence like a storm cloud waiting to burst. The judge entered. We all stood. When we sat back down, I noticed my husband's hand resting protectively on the table, his wedding ring still there. Mine was in a pawn shop, sold for $200 to pay my first month's rent. His lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of a devoted husband driven away by his wife's paranoia and controlling behavior. She had bank statements showing I'd withdrawn $500 here, $800 there, over the past year. Money I'd taken for groceries, for bills, for gas. She made it sound like embezzlement. My client has been the sole breadwinner for 2 years, she said, while Mrs. Caldwell refused to maintain employment, claiming she needed to focus on starting a family. That wasn't true. I'd been working as a medical transcriptionist from home, making $2,000 a month, but he'd convinced me to quit 6 months ago, saying we didn't need my income, saying he wanted me to rest, to reduce stress while we tried for a baby. I'd trusted him. Now that trust was being weaponized against me. Bennett stood for my turn. He laid out the evidence methodically. The text messages between my husband and my sister, going back 29 months. The bank records showing unexplained cash withdrawals totaling $42,000. The credit card statements with my forged signature. Your Honor, this is a clear case of financial fraud and emotional abuse, Bennett said. Mr. Caldwell systematically isolated my client, convinced her to leave her job, then drained their accounts while conducting an affair with her own sister. The judge looked at my husband. Do you have a response to these allegations? Before his lawyer could speak, the courtroom door opened. My sister walked in, and I'd never seen her look more radiant. She wore a cream dress that hugged her figure, her hand resting on a barely visible bump. The message was clear. She took the stand without being called, and the judge allowed it. Your Honor, she said, her voice trembling perfectly. I need to tell the truth. My sister has been struggling with mental health issues for years. Paranoia. Delusions. She's convinced herself that everyone is against her. I watched her perform, and it was masterful. The way she dabbed at her eyes, the way she looked at me with manufactured concern. This was the sister who taught me to ride a bike, who'd held my hair back when I had food poisoning at 19, who'd been my maid of honor. The affair, she continued, it started after she pushed him away. She'd accuse him of cheating every time he worked late. She'd go through his phone, his emails, his car. She made his life hell, and when he came to me for advice about leaving her, we found comfort in each other. It was a lie so smooth it almost sounded true. Almost. Bennett stood. Miss Foster, you claim your sister is paranoid. Yet my client has documentation of over 200 text messages between you and her husband, many of them explicitly sexual in nature, dating back to before their wedding. Would you like to explain those? My sister's composure cracked just for a second. Those messages were taken out of context. Out of context? Bennett repeated. He pulled out his phone and read aloud. November 15th, 3 days before their wedding. You wrote, "Can't wait until she's stuck with you forever and I can have you whenever I want." How is that out of context? The judge leaned forward. Ms. Foster, I think you should step down. But my sister wasn't done. I'm pregnant, she announced, her voice rising. With his child. We're starting a family together, the family she couldn't give him. She's infertile, Your Honor. That's why she's so bitter. The courtroom went silent. I felt every eye on me, waiting for me to break, to scream, to prove I was the unstable one. Instead, I laughed. It came out of nowhere, this sharp bark of sound that echoed off the walls. I'm not infertile, I said clearly, but I was on birth control this whole time. Because he told me he wanted to wait, that we needed to save more money first. My sister's face went white. You didn't know that, did you? I asked. He told you I couldn't have kids, that we'd been trying for years, but we weren't trying at all. I have emails from him, from 8 months ago, saying we should wait until we had $50,000 saved. The $50,000 you two stole. Bennett pulled out printed emails. The judge read them silently. When he looked up, his expression had changed. Mr. Caldwell, the judge said slowly, did you lie to Ms. Foster about your wife's fertility? My husband's lawyer whispered something urgent to him. He ignored her. She was going to leave me eventually, he said. I saw how she looked at other men, how she talked about going back to school. She was going to realize she was too good for me and leave, so I left first. I needed to protect myself. The logic was so twisted it almost made sense. Almost. The judge removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. I'm granting Mrs. Caldwell's petition for divorce. Mr. Caldwell, you'll be responsible for half of the debt incurred in your wife's name, plus restitution for the stolen savings. Ms. Foster, you're not a party to this case, but I'm recommending the district attorney review the evidence for possible fraud charges. My sister stood abruptly. You can't do this. We love each other. We're having a baby. That's not my concern, the judge said. This hearing is adjourned. I walked out of that courtroom in my coffee-stained dress and felt lighter than I had in months. My brother hugged me in the hallway. My mom cried. My uncle shook Bennett's hand and promised to send over more evidence for the criminal case. But I knew it wasn't over. Not really. That night, my sister showed up at my apartment. I heard her knocking, then pounding, then screaming. You ruined my life. Everything was perfect until you had to play detective. I didn't open the door. I called the police instead and filed for a restraining order. They came and escorted her away, still screaming about how I'd always been jealous of her, how I'd never been pretty enough, smart enough. The restraining order was granted the next day. 500 feet, no contact, no third-party contact. It felt like a shield made of paper. My husband disappeared. His lawyer said he'd moved out of state for a new job opportunity. The debt collection agencies found me instead. Apparently, the credit card wasn't the only thing he'd opened in my name. There were 3 more. A car loan, a personal loan from a predatory lender charging 28% interest. By the time the dust settled, I was $87,000 in debt. Bennett helped me file for bankruptcy. It's not ideal, he said, but it's the fastest way to clear this. You can rebuild. Rebuild. The word felt foreign, like learning a new language after a stroke. I moved in with my brother and his wife, Natalie. They had a spare room in their basement, and they didn't charge rent. I got a job at a call center making $13 an hour, handling customer complaints about cable bills. It was mind-numbing work, but it kept me busy. Every morning, I'd wake up in that basement room and forget for just a second that my life had imploded. Then reality would crash back in, and I'd have to force myself out of bed. 3 months after the divorce, my uncle called. We found something, he said. You might want to sit down. I was already sitting, eating cereal over the sink at 6 a.m. What is it? Your sister isn't pregnant. She never was. The cereal turned to paste in my mouth. What? She's been faking it, padding under her clothes. She even went to prenatal appointments with a fake ID using your name. She was building a fraud case against you, claiming you'd stolen her identity to access pregnancy services you couldn't afford. I set down the bowl carefully. Why would she do that? Control maybe. Revenge. We're not sure yet, but the hospital confirmed it. No pregnancy. Never was. I called my mom. She didn't answer. I called my dad. He picked up on the 5th ring. We know, he said quietly. Your mother found the padding yesterday. Your sister admitted everything. She said she did it to prove a point. That you'd believe anything if it made you look like the victim. Where is she now? At a facility. We had her committed for a 72-hour hold. She's not well, honey. She hasn't been well for a long time. I hung up and sat in the dark basement trying to process this new information. My sister had faked a pregnancy, had planned to frame me for identity theft, had destroyed my life because why? Because I'd been happy? Because I'd gotten married first? Because some ancient sibling rivalry had festered into something malignant? I never got a clear answer. The facility extended her hold to 30 days, then 60, then 90. My parents stopped giving me updates. Eventually, I stopped asking. My husband resurfaced 6 months later. He'd moved to Portland and gotten engaged to someone new. She looked like me, same hair, same build, same smile in the photos he posted online. My brother showed me, thinking I should know. I looked at the photos for maybe 30 seconds, then never looked again. By my first year post-divorce, I'd rebuilt enough to move into my own studio apartment. It was 400 square feet with a window that didn't open and neighbors who fought at 3 a.m., but it was mine. I bought a mattress from a thrift store and a coffee maker from Target and felt like a millionaire. I started therapy. Dr. Howell was a woman in her 60s who'd survived her own bad marriage and made it her mission to help other women do the same. She didn't tell me to forgive. She didn't tell me to move on. She just helped me figure out how to exist in this new version of myself. You're grieving 2 losses, she said during our 4th session. Your marriage and your sister. That's compounded grief. It's going to take time. Time. Everyone kept saying that. Like time was this magic salve that would make everything better. But time just made the pain duller. It didn't make it disappear. I started dating again after 18 months. Nothing serious, just coffee dates and one dinner that ended with an awkward handshake. My brother said I needed to get back out there. Natalie said I needed to heal first. Dr. Howell said I needed to do whatever felt right. What felt right was being alone, learning to be enough for myself, learning that I didn't need someone else to validate my existence. On the 2-year anniversary of finding that text message, I drove to the house my husband and I had rented together. It was empty now, a for-lease sign in the yard. I sat in my car and looked at the windows where we'd hung curtains, the door we'd walked through carrying groceries, the life we'd pretended to build. Then I drove away and didn't look back. My sister got out of the facility after 4 months. She moved to California, and my mom said she was doing better, getting help, working on herself. I didn't respond to that information. There was nothing left to say. The criminal charges against my husband were dropped due to lack of evidence. My lawyer explained that financial abuse in marriages is incredibly hard to prosecute, especially when both names were on the accounts. The credit card fraud was civil, not criminal, and bankruptcy had wiped the slate clean. He got away with it. They both did, really. I learned to live with that injustice, with the fact that sometimes terrible people face no consequences for terrible actions, that life isn't fair, and the good guys don't always win, and closure is something you have to manufacture for yourself. By year 3, I'd gotten promoted at work. I was managing a team of 12 customer service representatives, making $48,000 a year. Not great, but decent. Enough to save a little. Enough to start thinking about the future. I reconnected with an old friend from college, Gemma. She'd gotten divorced around the same time I had, and we bonded over cheap wine and stories that made us laugh and cry in equal measure. She introduced me to her book club, and for the first time in years, I had friends who didn't know my story, who just knew me as me. One of the women in book club, Hollis, worked in real estate. She mentioned she needed help with administrative tasks, and would I be interested in part-time work? I said yes, thinking it would be extra money. It turned into a new career. I got my real estate license 6 months later. Hollis took me under her wing, taught me everything she knew. Within a year, I'd closed my first solo sale. A young couple buying their first home, and I remembered what that felt like. The hope, the excitement, the belief that you're building something permanent. I didn't tell them my story. I just helped them find their house and smiled at their closing, genuinely happy for them. By year 4, I'd saved enough for a down payment on my own place. A small condo, 2 bedrooms, with a balcony that faced east. I could watch the sunrise every morning and drink coffee and exist in my own space without fear. My brother helped me move in. We ordered pizza and sat on my new couch. The first piece of furniture I'd ever bought brand new. I'm proud of you, he said. You could have given up. I thought about it, I admitted, more than once. But you didn't. No, I didn't. My mom called on my 35th birthday. We hadn't spoken in over a year, not since the facility. Your sister wants to talk to you, she said without preamble. I don't want to talk to her. She's different now. She's been in therapy. She wants to make amends. Good for her. I still don't want to talk to her. Mom sighed. You can't hold on to this anger forever. Watch me. I hung up and blocked her number. Then I called Dr. Howell and scheduled an emergency session. We talked about boundaries, about forgiveness being optional, not mandatory, about how sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away and never look back. You don't owe her forgiveness, Dr. Howell said. You don't owe her anything. That night, I wrote a letter I never sent. Pages and pages of everything I wished I could say to my sister. All the rage and hurt and betrayal I'd been carrying. I wrote until my hand cramped, until the words ran together, until I'd emptied myself of every poisonous thought. Then I burned it in my bathtub and watched the ashes swirl down the drain. 5 years after that text message lit up the darkness, I met someone. His name was Calvin, and he was quiet and careful, and had his own scars from his own bad marriage. We met at a coffee shop where he was reading a book I'd loved. I commented on it. He smiled. We talked for 3 hours. Our first date was miniature golf. Our second was a museum. Our third was cooking dinner at my place, where he chopped vegetables wrong and I taught him the right way and we laughed until we cried. He knew my story. I told him on date 4, laying it all out, waiting for him to run. He didn't. That's awful, he said. And I'm sorry that happened to you. But it doesn't define you, doesn't it though? I asked. I'm broken merchandise now. Damaged goods. No, he said firmly. You're someone who survived. That's different. We moved slowly, painfully slowly. He understood why I needed to check his phone sometimes, why I needed reassurance, why I panicked when he worked late. He never made me feel crazy for it. A year later, he proposed. On my balcony at sunrise with coffee still steaming in our mugs. I know you're scared, he said. I'm scared too, but I think we could be really good together, if you're willing to try. I said yes, and I meant it. And I wore a ring that felt different from the first one, lighter, somehow, like hope instead of an anchor. We got married at City Hall with just our siblings there. No big wedding, no drama, just 2 people who'd been broken by other people choosing to try again. My sister sent a card. My mom must have given her my address. Inside was a single line. I'm happy for you. No apology, no explanation, just that. I threw it away without showing Calvin. Some things don't deserve space in your new life. 6 months into marriage, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was my ex-husband. I heard you got remarried, he said. I wanted to say congratulations. How did you get this number? Mutual friends. Look, I know I messed up. I was young and stupid and scared. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. For what that's worth. It's not worth much, I said. But thank you for calling. I hung up and blocked that number too. Later, I told Calvin about it. Do you think he meant it? He asked. Maybe, Probably not. It doesn't matter anymore. And it didn't. That was the strange thing about healing. At some point, the people who hurt you become irrelevant, background noise in a life they're no longer part of. By year 7, Calvin and I bought a house. A real house. With a yard and 3 bedrooms and space to breathe. We adopted a dog named Banjo who had 3 legs and a ton of personality. We hosted Thanksgiving and invited my brother's family and Calvin's parents and some friends from work. During dessert, Natalie pulled me aside. "You know what's crazy?" she said. "Watching you now, you'd never know what you went through." "I know what I went through," I said. "I'll always know. But it doesn't own me anymore." That was the truth of it. The betrayal hadn't disappeared. The scars were still there, faded but permanent. But they were just scars now. Evidence of survival, not open wounds. My sister got married too. My mom sent me photos without asking if I wanted them. A small wedding in Santa Barbara, to a man who looked kind. I looked at the photos for maybe a minute, studying my sister's face for signs of, what? Happiness? Regret? I didn't find what I was looking for, and eventually I stopped looking. I never reached out, never tried to reconcile. Some people think that makes me cold, unforgiving. Maybe it does. But Dr. Howell taught me that self-preservation isn't selfish. That sometimes love means letting go completely. 8 years after everything fell apart, Calvin and I had a daughter. We named her Iris, and she had his eyes and my stubbornness. Holding her in the hospital, I thought about all the versions of myself who'd gotten me here. The girl who'd found that text message. The woman who'd stood in that courtroom. The person who'd chosen to rebuild instead of break. I didn't send birth announcements to my sister. She wasn't part of this story anymore. Iris turned 1, then 2, then 3. She learned to walk in our backyard. She learned to talk while sitting in her high chair, demanding more crackers and increasingly complex sentences. She was perfect and difficult and everything I'd been too afraid to hope for. On her 4th birthday, my mom showed up uninvited. I answered the door, and we stared at each other for a long moment. "I should have believed you sooner," she said finally. "I should have protected you. I didn't. And I'm sorry." It was the apology I'd needed 8 years ago. Now it felt too late and not enough and somehow still important. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "But I need you to leave. Can I at least meet my granddaughter?" I looked back at Iris, playing with her new toys, surrounded by people who loved her unconditionally, who would always choose her, who would never make her compete for affection or second-guess her worth. "No," I said. "She has enough grandparents." My mom's face crumpled. "You're really going to keep her from me? Your own mother? You kept choosing her," I said quietly. "Over and over you chose my sister, even when you knew what she'd done, even when you saw what it cost me. So yes, I'm choosing my daughter, and I'm choosing me, the way you never did." I closed the door gently but firmly. Through the window, I watched my mom walk to her car. She sat there for maybe 10 minutes before driving away. I felt sad, but not guilty. There's a difference. Calvin found me by the window. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. I really am. That night, after Iris was asleep and the house was quiet, Calvin and I sat on our back porch. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't seen that text?" he asked. "Sometimes. I probably would have found out eventually, some other way. Or maybe I wouldn't have. Maybe I'd still be there, pretending everything was fine, wondering why I felt so empty. I'm glad you're not there." "Me too." We sat in comfortable silence, and I realized this was the life I'd built from rubble. Not perfect, but real. Not what I'd planned, but somehow better than anything I could have imagined when I was 26 and drowning. 10 years after that night in the dark bedroom, I got a letter from my sister. Real mail, handwritten, postmarked from Arizona. I held it for 3 days before opening it. When I finally did, it was 12 pages long, single-spaced, dense with words. She told her version of events, how she'd been in love with him first, how I'd stolen him from her at that engagement party by being prettier, funnier, more interesting, how every moment of my happiness had been a knife in her heart, how the affair was justice, not betrayal, how the pregnancy lie was a moment of insanity she regretted but couldn't undo, how she'd spent years in therapy learning to let go of her jealousy and anger, how she wanted me to know she was sorry, how she hoped, maybe someday, we could find our way back to each other. I read it once. Then I put it in a shoebox in the attic with other things from my past life, letters from my ex-husband I'd never thrown away, photos from our wedding, the divorce papers, evidence of a life that no longer fit me. I didn't write back. Forgiveness isn't owed, and reconciliation isn't required. Some bridges burn for a reason. That same year, I made partner at the real estate firm. Hollis retired and left me her client list and a letter telling me how proud she was. I cried reading it, grateful for this woman who'd given me a second chance at a career, at life, when I needed it most. My daughter started kindergarten. On her first day, she wore a purple dress and shoes that lit up and had more confidence than I'd had at 25. She hugged me goodbye without looking back, ready to conquer the world. I watched her disappear into the building and felt that familiar mix of pride and terror that comes with parenthood. Calvin and I talked about having another kid. We decided against it. Iris was enough. Our life was enough. We didn't need more to be complete. 11 years after everything fell apart, my dad died. Heart attack, sudden and massive. He was 67. I went to the funeral but sat in the back. My sister was in the front row with my mom, and I could see the back of her head. Her hair was shorter now, streaked with gray she wasn't bothering to hide. We didn't speak, didn't acknowledge each other. At the reception, I shook hands with distant relatives and accepted condolences from people who didn't know our history. Then I left before the crowd thinned, before an awkward conversation could become inevitable. My brother caught me in the parking lot. "You doing okay?" "Yeah. It's strange, grieving someone who disappointed you. Missing who you needed them to be instead of who they were. That's grief," he said. "It's always complicated." I hugged him hard and drove home to my family, to Calvin, who'd stayed back with Iris, to my house and my dog and my life that existed separate from all of that pain. 12 years out, I ran into my ex-husband at a conference in Denver. We were both in line for coffee at the hotel. He looked older, tired, his hairline receding. "Hey," he said, recognizing me before I recognized him. "Hey," I said back. "How have you been?" "Good. Really good, actually." "You?" "Yeah, good. Married again. 2 kids now. That's great. I'm happy for you." And the strangest part was, I meant it. Not because he deserved happiness, but because his happiness or misery no longer affected mine. We were strangers now who'd once known each other. Nothing more. We got our coffee and went separate ways. I didn't mention it to Calvin when I got home. It felt unimportant, like reporting that I'd seen someone I went to high school with, just another person from another life. 13 years after that text message changed everything, I took Iris to meet my mom. She'd been calling, asking to be part of her granddaughter's life. Dr. Howell and I had talked it through. Calvin had supported whatever I decided. In the end, I chose to give my mom one chance. One supervised visit. One opportunity to prove she could choose me finally. We met at a park. My mom brought cookies she'd baked and a photo album of my childhood she thought Iris might like to see. I watched them interact carefully, ready to intervene at the first sign of toxicity, but my mom was gentle, present. She asked Iris about school and friends and her favorite books. She didn't mention my sister. Didn't try to justify the past. Just existed in this moment with her granddaughter, grateful for the opportunity. Afterward, when Iris was playing on the swings, my mom turned to me. I know I don't deserve this, she said. Thank you for letting me try. This doesn't fix everything, I said. I know. I'm not sure it fixes anything. I know that too. We sat in silence. And it wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. Just two women trying to figure out how to exist in each other's orbit after years of distance. The visits became monthly, then bi-weekly. My mom never asked about reconciling with my sister, never pressured me to forgive or forget. She just showed up for Iris, and slowly, carefully, for me too. 14 years out, my sister reached out again, this time through my brother. She's sick, he said. Stage 3 breast cancer. She's asking if you'll visit. No, I said immediately. I get it. I just wanted to tell you in case you changed your mind. I didn't change my mind. Calvin asked if I was sure. Dr. Howell asked how I felt about that decision. Natalie said she understood completely. My mom called and cried and begged me to reconsider. I stood firm. Because somewhere in the 13 years of rebuilding myself, I'd learned that compassion doesn't require self-sacrifice. That you can wish someone well from a distance without inviting them back into your life. That no is a complete sentence. My sister survived the cancer. My mom updated me occasionally, and I listened politely, then changed the subject. Her survival didn't change anything between us. We remained strangers who'd once been sisters, and that was okay. 15 years after everything fell apart, Iris asked me why she only had one grandmother. We were making dinner together, and the question came out of nowhere, the way kids' questions do. You have two, I said carefully. One you know and one you don't. Why don't I know the other one? It's complicated. That's what adults say when they don't want to explain things. She was right, of course. So I took a breath and told her a simplified version, that I had a sister, that she'd done something that hurt me very badly, that I'd chosen not to have her in my life anymore, and that meant her children weren't part of our life either. Does she have kids? Iris asked. I don't know. Maybe. So I might have cousins I've never met? Maybe. She processed this quietly, stirring the pasta sauce. Do you miss her? Sometimes I miss who she used to be, or who I thought she was. But the person she actually is? No, I don't miss her. Okay, Iris said. Then, can I have extra garlic in my pasta? And that was it. Kids are resilient like that. They accept the reality they're given and move forward. 16 years out, I sold my first $1 million property. The commission was enormous. Hollis's training and my work ethic had paid off in ways I never expected. Calvin and I talked about what to do with the money. We paid off the house, set up Iris's college fund, took a vacation to Italy where we ate too much pasta and wandered through ruins and remembered what it felt like to just be happy. On the last night of the trip, sitting on a terrace overlooking Rome, Calvin asked, "Do you ever think about how different your life would be if none of it had happened?" All the time, I admitted. But I wouldn't trade this. Not for anything. Not even to avoid all that pain. Not even then. Because this version of me, the one sitting here with you, she's someone I actually like. The old version, I don't know if she ever really knew herself. I like this version too, he said, kissing my forehead. We flew home the next day, back to our real life. Our daughter and dog and jobs and routines. It was a good life. Not perfect, but mine. Built from the ground up by someone who'd learned the hard way what she was worth. 17 years after that text message, I got a package in the mail. No return address, but I recognized my sister's handwriting on the label. Inside was a journal. Her journal, apparently, from the years of our childhood through the affair. Page after page of her thoughts, her justifications, her twisted logic. I flipped through it once, reading random entries. Saw my name again and again, always with resentment. Saw my husband's name with obsession. Saw her charting our relationship from the beginning, waiting for her moment. I could have read it all. Could have tried to understand the mind that had destroyed so much. Instead, I threw it away without finishing it. Understanding why someone hurt you doesn't heal the wound. Sometimes it just gives the pain more space to live. Calvin found me by the trash can. What was that? Nothing important, I said. Just something from a life I don't live anymore. 18 years out, my mom got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Early stage, but progressive. She started forgetting things. Small stuff at first, where she'd put her keys, what day it was. Then bigger things. My dad's death. Then my name. I visited her every week. Iris came sometimes, patient with her grandmother's repetition and confusion. My mom's caretaker mentioned that my sister visited too, on different days. We'd arranged it that way, carefully scheduling around each other to avoid collision. One day I arrived early. My sister was leaving as I was arriving. We stood in the driveway, seeing each other for the first time in almost 2 decades. She looked older, different, like a stranger wearing a familiar face. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I said back. "How have you been?" "Good." Silence stretched between us, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally, she spoke again. "I know you'll never forgive me. I don't blame you. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. For all of it." I looked at her and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, no longing for what we'd been. Just nothing. "Okay," I said. "Okay? Okay. I heard you. But it doesn't change anything." She nodded slowly. "I know. I just needed to say it." She walked to her car and I watched her drive away. Then I went inside to visit my mom, who smiled at me like she couldn't quite place my face but knew I was important somehow. 19 years out, my mom died. peacefully, in her sleep. My brother called me at 6 a.m. with the news. I cried, but not as much as I expected. She'd been gone for months already, her mind lost to disease. This was just her body catching up. The funeral was larger than my dad's. My mom had been social, beloved in her community. I sat with Calvin and Iris and my brother's family. My sister sat 3 rows back with her husband and 2 kids I'd never met. We didn't speak. At the burial, after everyone else had left, I found myself standing at the grave alone. My sister appeared beside me, maintaining careful distance. I loved her, she said. So did I said. Do you think she knew? At the end? I don't know. Maybe. Does it matter? I guess not. We stood in silence. 2 women connected by blood and history and nothing else. Finally, my sister spoke again. I have kids now. A boy and a girl. They're good kids. That's nice. I tell them about you sometimes. About their aunt they've never met. Why? Because you're part of their history. Even if you're not part of their present. I turned to look at her fully. You don't get to do this. You don't get to rewrite what happened into some tragic misunderstanding. You methodically destroyed my life because you wanted what was mine. That's not a sisterly disagreement. That's something much darker. I know, she said quietly. I know what I am, what I did. I'm not trying to rewrite it. I wanted you to know I think about you. Wonder how you are. If you're happy. I am happy, I said. Very happy, actually. And you're not part of that happiness. You never will be. I walked away then, back to my family waiting by the car. I didn't look back to see if she was crying. It didn't matter anymore. 20 years after that text message lit up the darkness, I woke up on a Tuesday morning in my house with my husband beside me, and my daughter getting ready for high school down the hall. The coffee maker beeped. The dog needed to be walked. I had 3 showings scheduled and a closing at 2 hours house. It was an ordinary day, in an extraordinary life I'd built from ruins. I thought about that night sometimes. That moment when everything changed. The betrayal that felt like the end of the world. And I thought about how wrong I'd been. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something better. Something real. Because here's what they don't tell you about surviving betrayal. It doesn't make you harder. Not if you do it right. It makes you more careful. Yes, more aware. But it also makes you more grateful for the good things. More present in the moments that matter. More certain about what you'll accept and what you won't. My first marriage taught me what I didn't want. My second marriage showed me what I did. My sister taught me that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. My chosen family taught me that loyalty doesn't require blood. I got out of bed and started my day. Made breakfast with Calvin. Drove Iris to school. Showed a house to a young couple starting their life together. Closed a deal with a widow downsizing after loss. Walked the dog. Made dinner. Helped with homework. Fell asleep next to someone who chose me every day. Not out of obligation, but out of love. And somewhere in all that ordinary living, I realized something crucial. I'd won. Not because my ex-husband faced consequences. Not because my sister apologized. Not because justice was served. I'd won because I was happy. Really, truly, deeply happy. And that was the best revenge of all.